नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Welcome to Bhagavata Pravaha online course. We began the discussion on 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the first episode, we have discussed the first 4 chapters of 7th canto, and in this episode, we will discuss chapters number 5, 6 and 7. So, 5th chapter describes the glorious character of Prahlad Maharaj, and in 6th and 7th chapters describe his beautiful teachings to his schoolmates. We will discuss that in this episode. And in the previous episode, we have seen how Hiranyakashipu consoled his relatives when they were lamenting upon the death of Hiranyaksha. And we have also seen how Hiranyakashipu performed so many austerities for 100 celestial years, and how Brahmaji has given him benedictions that made him practically immortal. And later Hiranyakashipu tormented all the residents of the 3 planetary systems, and he was constantly absorbed in sense gratification, and he had uncontrolled senses, because of which he was completely dissatisfied. And towards the end of the 4th chapter, we have also seen the glorious qualities of Prahlad Maharaj also. Brahmanyaha Sheela Sampannaha Satya Sandho Jitendriyaha. All these beautiful qualities we have seen. In the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, there is a beautiful shloka that says that all the great qualities of even great demigods also manifest in the personality of a great devotee. Thus, Prahlad is an abode of all wonderful qualities. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunaistatra samasate suraha हराव भक्तस्य कुतो महद्गुणः मनोरथेना सति धावतो बहि यस्यास्ति भक्तिर भगवति अकिंचना. Whoever has unflinching devotion towards the Supreme Lord, Bhagavatya Kinchana, Sarvair Gunaistatra Samasate Suraha, all the good qualities of even great demigods appear in that devotee's personality. Harav abhaktasya kuto mahadguna. If one is not a devotee of Lord Hari, what great quality such a person could have? Manorathena asati dhavato bahihi means such a person will just is constantly absorbed in his mental concoctions and conduct himself like that. So Prahlad is an abode of all good qualities, as he himself said that devotees have all good qualities. He did not say about himself, he said about other devotees. So devotees never glorify themselves. So here we will see the glorious qualities of Prahlad Maharaj in this chapter, 5th chapter of the 7th canto. So all the demons accepted Sukracharya as their priest. And Sukracharya had 2 sons. They are Shanda and Amarka. And Prahlad Maharaj was sent to the school of Shanda and Amarka. And Prahlad was already knowledgeable, he is Nayakovida, he is already very knowledgeable, but still he was just a 5-year-old boy. He was sent to the school of Shanda and Amarka, the Gurukul, and Prahlad started studying there. But the syllabus of the school, whatever Shanda and Amarka were teaching in that school, was not very appealing to Prahlad Maharaj, because they were always teaching about politics and discriminating people as friends and enemies, how to punish people, how to hate people as enemies, like that. There is always a teaching of swapara, duality, mine and yours. So that teachings based on duality, material duality, were not at all appealing to Prahlad Maharaj. So one day this Prahlad was called by Hiranyakashipu. So Hiranyakashipu called Prahlad Maharaj one day and said, "My dear son, you have been studying in your teacher's Gurukul for quite a significant time. So can you please tell me whatever you think is best? It's not a very good question, it's not a very tough question. Hiranyakashipu is asking Prahalad to repeat whatever he thinks is best. He did not ask a very specific question from a specific book in the syllabus of Shanda and Namarka. He is just asking a very generic question. Whatever you think is best, you can just share with me. So he is just a 5-year-old boy, and Hiranyakashipu did not expect anything practical, but he was only expecting something sweet. When a small 5-year-old child speaks in a broken language in a sweet way, whatever he has studied, that's very much appealing and nice to the parents to see. So Prahalad Maharaj, he spoke a beautiful shloka in response to Hiranyakashipu's first question. He said, Tat sadhu manye suravarya dehinam sada samudvigna dhiyama sadgraha hitvatma patam grahamandhakupam vanam gato yadharimashrayeta. Tat sadhu manye asuravarya dehinam. Oh Asuravarya, oh the king of demons. Tat sadhu manye. I consider that is best. What is that? That sada samudvigna dhiyam asadgraha. For those materialistic people who are absorbed in selfish household life, for those people, this is best. What is that? Hitva. They should give up their household life. Why? Atmapatam graham. This materialistic household life is soul degrading. Atmapatam graham andhakupam. It is like a blind dark well. So giving up this blind dark well like materialistic household life that completely degrades the soul, what should one do? Vanam gatoyad. One should go to Vrindavan, Harimashrayeta, and take shelter of Lord Hari. So this is the first shloka that our Prahalad Maharaj spoke. Little Prahalad, 5-year-old Prahalad spoke in front of Hiranyakashipu. So when Prahalad was asked, what you think is best, you just speak that. He said, this is what I think is the best. For a materialistic householder, giving up that soul degrading household life and going into the forest is the best thing to do. Then Hiranyakashipu laughed at this response. He was a bit surprised also. And he said to Shanda and Amarka, the teachers, he was telling them that Shanda and Amarka, you looks like some Vaishnavas, some Vishnu Bhaktas are coming into your school in your absence. The children's intelligence is getting corrupted by enemies' words. My 5-year-old boy, who has no exposure to anything else, he is speaking about Vishnu Bhakti, Hari Bhakti in Vrindavan, in the arena of demons. How is this possible? Looks like some Vaishnavas are coming in disguise and contaminating the intelligence of these children. You should take care of this boy very diligently in your Gurukul. Then Shanda and Amarka took this boy, Prahalad, back to the school, and they very affectionately inquired Prahalad, my dear Prahalad, Shanda and Amarka were asking, they were pacifying, these other boys are not like you. They were not speaking about Hari Bhakti, they were not speaking about devotion unto Lord Vishnu. Who has spoiled your intelligence? Which enemy has spoiled your intelligence? Then Prahalad started responding to the question of Shanda and Amarka. He said, the Lord's Maya has created this conception of friend and enemy. There is no friend, there is no enemy. Everybody is a servant of God. Everybody is a lover of God. Everybody is a fragmental part of God, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivamsho jivaloke jiva bhutas sanatanaha. All the jivas are my fragmental parts. We are all children of God. So Prahalad, being a pure devotee who has invoked his pure Krishna consciousness, he does not discriminate between other jivas, other living beings, as friends and enemies. He only sees them on a spiritual plane as servants of God, servants of Krishna. So this Maya, or the illusory energy of the Lord, has created this conception of friend and enemy, but that such conception does not exist only. And he says that my intelligence, you are saying that my intelligence has been polluted by some enemy. I say there is no enemy, no friend. And I also say my intelligence is not polluted. By the grace of my Guru, my intelligence is pure, and I have learnt that no one is my friend or enemy. Everyone is an eternal servant of the Lord. Thus, all the living beings are spiritual in nature. There is oneness in that plane. And you are saying that my intelligence is different from other boys or your intelligence. So the Lord has made my intelligence different from yours. That Supreme Lord has made. And my intelligence or my consciousness is naturally attracted towards the Supreme Lord Krishna, just as iron particles are naturally attracted towards magnet. So just as iron gets attracted to magnet, my mind, my consciousness, my intelligence gets attracted to Krishna very thoroughly. So then the Shanda and Amarka became so angry at Prahalad. They chastised Prahalad. They scolded him so much. They said, bring a stick. This boy deserves to be punished. He has to be beaten up. And he is like a thorn tree in a sandalwood forest. This entire demoniac dynasty, this whole family of demons, asuras, is like a sandalwood forest, and this boy is like a thorn tree. And this thorn tree is providing wood for the handle of an axe, and that axe is Vishnu. So with that axe of Vishnu, this entire demoniac dynasty is being cut off. So like that they gave some comparison, imaginary comparison, and then chastised and scolded Prahalad, and they forcefully taught Prahalad dharma, artha, kama. Dharma is following some religious rituals just for some, to get some artha, to get some economic development or money, and utilizing that money for sense gratification is kama. So they were giving teachings to Prahalad about dharma, artha, kama, and they were also speaking to him politics and discriminating people between friends and enemies like that. So Prahalad did not like these teachings. But Shanda and Amarka taught him very forcefully. And then after teaching him like that, for some time they brought Prahalad in front of Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu saw this boy. And Hiranyakashipu, being a father, he had natural affection for Prahalad. And he picked up Prahalad and made him sit on his lap, and he hugged. He embraced Prahalad and smelled his head. And Hiranyakashipu had tears in his eyes out of affection for Prahalad. So then Hiranyakashipu started speaking to Prahalad. He asked a question, second question. First question was, my dear Prahalad, whatever you think is best, you speak to me. Then what did Prahalad say about that? He said that Tatsadhumanye asuravarya dehina. So for the first question asked by Hiranyakashipu in the first meeting, Prahalad replied with one verse that Vishnu Bhakti is the greatest. Now the second question asked by Hiranyakashipu was, he said that whatever you have learned from your guru, that you speak. Don't speak whatever you think is the best. Whatever your teacher taught you, that you speak. Then Prahalad said, Shravanam kirtanam Vishnoha smaranam padasevanam archanam vandanam dasyam sakhyam atmanivedanam. Shravanam means hearing about Krishna. Kirtanam means singing the glories of Krishna or chanting the holy names of Krishna. Vishnoha smaranam, remembering the Supreme Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Then fifth is Archanam. Archanam means worshipping the Lord. Then Vandanam, offering prayers to the Lord. Then Dasyam, rendering various services to the Lord in the mood of servant. Sakhyam, considering the Lord to be our dearest friend and well-wisher. Atmanivedanam, dedicating oneself completely to the Lord. These are the 9 processes of devotional service. Prahalad spoke about this. So, iti pumsarpita Vishnu bhaktische navalakshanaha kriyeta bhagavatyadha tanmanye dhitam uttamam. So, Prahalad said that these are the 9 processes of bhakti, and whoever performs these 9 processes of bhakti is the greatest personality. So, Prahalad, Hiranyakashipu asked Prahalad to speak whatever his guru taught. But Prahalad had 2 kinds of gurus. One is the materialistic gurus like Shanda and Amarka, who were teaching him politics and sociology and dharmartha kama. And the second type of guru is spiritual guru, that is Narada Muni. So Narada Muni enlightened Prahalad with his teachings when Prahalad was within the womb of his mother Kayadu. That we will discuss in the next chapter. After some time we will discuss that. So now Prahalad Maharaj spoke about these 9 processes of devotional service, and Hiranyakashipu became so furious. He said, "Oh Shanda and Amarka, you are Brahma Bandhus. You are not bona fide Brahmanas. You are just my enemies in the garb of my well-wishers. You have disobeyed my order. I told you not to teach this boy about Vishnu Bhakti, and you have taken shelter of my enemies, and you have taught this nonsense to my dear child Prahalad, and you are like a deceptive friend." And Prahalad Maharaj, then when he spoke like that, Hiranyakashipu became so upset. And when Hiranyakashipu chastised Shanda and Amarka, then Shanda and Amarka got little surprised and said that, "Hiranyakashipu, it's not proper to chastise a Brahmana. You are not supposed to insult a Brahmana. So we did not teach all these things to your son. So your son had a natural devotion towards Lord Vishnu. Your son did not develop any devotion towards Lord Vishnu because of our teachings. He is a natural devotee of the Lord. So it's so natural for him, and you are unnecessarily blaming us. It's not proper to blame or insult a Brahmana like this." Then Hiranyakashipu asked Prahalad Maharaj, "Dear Prahalad, if your teachers had not taught you Vishnu Bhakti, how did you develop this Vishnu Bhakti? Tell me. Where did you get this intelligence?" Then, this is the third question of Hiranyakashipu. So Prahalad Maharaj replied with 3 shlokas. When Hiranyakashipu asked his first question, Prahalad replied in 1 shloka, "Tat sadhu manya asuravarya dehinam." And second question asked by Hiranyakashipu was, "Whatever your guru taught you speak." Then he spoke about Sarvanam Kirtanam Vishnu iti pumsarpita Vishnu. Then third question, if teachers have not taught this to you, who had taught? Then Prahalad Maharaj replied with 3 shlokas. He said, "Matirna Krishne paratah svatova mithobhipatyeta grihavratanam adanta gobhir vishatam tamishram punaha punaha charvita charvananam matirna Krishne paratah svatova." So Krishna mati means having a mind that is constantly thinking about Lord Krishna. Matirna Krishne paratah svatova. One will not think of Krishna, or one will not become Krishna conscious by one's own efforts or by the efforts of others, or a mixture of both also. Matirna Krishne paratah svatova. If those people are very materialistic. Mithobhipadyeta grahavratanam. Grahavrata means people who are so absorbed in materialistic household life without God consciousness. Such people are not influenced to perform bhakti by their own efforts or by other efforts, or by a combination of both. Adanta gobhir dvishatam tamishram. Vishatam tamishram. Adanta gobhi means uncontrolled senses. By becoming victims of uncontrolled senses, these people will enter the darkest regions of hell, tamishram, and do what? Punaha punaha charvita charvananam. They chew the chewed. They hanker for the same flavor of sense gratification that they have already experienced several times. That's the nature of materialistic people. He says like this. And in the second shloka he says, "Nate viduhu swartha gatim hi vishnum durashaya ye bahirartha maninaha andha yathandair yupaniyamana hati pishatantriyam urudam nibaddhaha." He says, "Nate viduhu swartha gatim hi vishnum." Such people cannot understand that Vishnu is their swartha gati. Swartha gati means one's own goal, one's own destination, what one is supposed to pursue in one's life, that is Vishnu. So one does not understand what is one's real goal, that is Vishnu Bhakti. Nate viduhu swartha gatim hi vishnum. And durashayaye bahirarthamanihinnaha. Durashaya means they become so ambitious and they consider bahir arthamaninaha. Bahir means external material things. Artha means purposeful, meaningful. They consider meaningless people, meaningless things that mean nothing to them as the most meaningful things. Durashayaye bahirarthamaninaha, they hanker for material pleasures. Andha yatha andhair upaniyamanaha. If a blind person is led by another blind person, what will happen? Will they reach their destination? He himself is blind. How can he guide another person? Similarly, if we take shelter of people who are not spiritually inclined, so we may just end up in a ditch. We may just degrade ourselves more if we take wrong guidance. In Kali Yuga, people are misguided oftentimes. So, andha yathandair upaniyamanaha tepisha tantriyam urudamni baddhaha. Because of the tantriya, because of the bondage created by the Lord's Maya, urudamni baddha, they are totally entangled. So, this is the nature of such people. Then again, third shloka he says, what is the hope for such people? Naishamatistavadurukramanghrim sprishatyanarthapagamo yadarthaha mahiyyasampada abhishekam nishkinchananam navrinita yavat nate. He says, Naisham matihi tavadurukramanghrim. In their minds, they will not develop any inclination to serve the lotus feet of Lord Urukrama. And anarthapagamo yadarthaha, they won't be able to destroy their unwanted things, but they will be able to destroy their anarthas. They will be able to think about the Lord's lotus feet if mahiyasam pada rajobhishekam, if they bathe themselves with the dust from the lotus feet of great Vaishnavas. So if we surrender unto Vaishnavas, if we surrender unto devotees, and if we take shelter of those devotees and perform devotional service under their guidance, then we will be able to understand the lotus feet of the Lord and take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And nishkinchananam navrinita yavat, one can become totally uncontaminated. So Prahalad Maharaj gave such beautiful teachings of bhakti even while standing in front of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu is the king of demons. Entire universe is terrified by the movement of the eyebrows of Hiranyakashipu. But this 5-year-old child who is completely dedicated to Lord Vishnu is not at all afraid. He is very boldly, confidently, courageously giving teachings of bhakti, standing right in front of Hiranyakashipu. That's the glory of pure devotional service. Prahalad's devotional service is very pure. There is a beautiful shloka that comes in the first canto of Bhagavatam. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktiradhokshaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Means the highest duty of the entire humanity is to perform devotional service unto the Supreme Lord Krishna, and that bhakti has to be performed ahaituki and apratihata, without any motivations and without any interruptions. Prahalad Maharaj was born in a demoniac family. Prahalad Maharaj was just a 5-year-old child. Prahalad Maharaj was threatened by his own father, and his own father was against his bhakti. But still, Prahalad is a pure devotee. So all these external material circumstances did not cause any interruption or obstacle to Prahalad's bhakti. And Prahalad is totally unmotivated also. He is not having any material expectations. So Hiranyakashipu has heard all these teachings of bhakti from Prahalad, and Hiranyakashipu threw off Prahalad from his lap, and he became so furious, so angry, and said, "Kill him as soon as possible." He ordered his servants to kill him. He is the killer of my brother, because he is worshipping that Vishnu who has killed my brother. So he is as good as killer of my brother. He is not trustworthy. Although he is my own son, he is coming from my own dynasty, but still I cannot trust him. So although one limb of the body is affected by some disease, we have to cut that limb. Although it is a part of one's body, but still we have to cut that limb so that the remaining body will remain unaffected. So he is unfavorable person. So just like uncontrolled senses are the enemies of yogis, uncontrolled sons are enemies of fathers. So he's going against my philosophy, just kill him. So Prahalad, this Hiranyakashipu's servants, all the demoniac associates of Hiranyakashipu took little Prahalad, 5-year-old boy, and they made elephants stamp on this little boy Prahalad, and they made so many snakes bite this little boy Prahalad, as you are seeing in the pictures. And there are so many demons with so many weapons, they were attacking Prahalad, and Prahalad was thrown from mountain cliff, and whatever obstacles are placed in the path of pure devotion of Prahalad, Prahalad Maharaj was not at all giving up that devotion. And although all the demons tried so much to kill Prahalad in various ways, Lord Vishnu always protected Prahalad. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janaha paryupasate tesham nityabhayuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Whoever always remembers Lord Vishnu with an undeviated mind, they derive all protection from the Lord Vishnu, and the Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna personally takes the responsibility of their maintenance and protection in all ways, in all circumstances, at all times. So, although so many attempts were made to kill Prahalad, but Prahalad did not die, and Prahalad's devotion also did not die. He did not give up Vishnu Bhakti, and he did not give up his body also. Vishnu is protecting his body. So Hiranyakashipu started thinking, I am such a powerful personality, I am controlling entire universe, and I am unable to change the mind of my little boy, little son, 5-year-old child. Looks like he is like a dog's tail. So dog's tail is always curved and it can never be straightened. So Prahalad's devotion is not at all getting diverted in any way. So Hiranyakashipu compared Prahalad with a dog's tail. Or because of my enmity, I may die. Or Hiranyakashipu was thinking like this, that because of his enmity towards Prahalada, he may die. He was thinking like this. So Hiranyakashipu was thinking in this way, that I could not kill him. He has unlimited strength. Looks like he is immortal. I got benedictions to become immortal, but looks like my son is immortal. So when he was thinking like this, Shanda and Amarka came to Hiranyakashipu and said, Hiranyakashipu, do not worry. He is a small child. His determination, his devotion do not have any value. He is after all a 5-year-old boy. When he is grown up, he will definitely change, don't worry. He is little adamant as a small child, but when we train him so nicely, then he will be able to transform his heart. So now send this boy with us, we will teach him. So then Hiranyakashipu agreed and again sent Prahalad Maharaj back to Shanda and Amarka school. That completes the 5th chapter and we enter the 6th chapter. And what did Prahalad do in the school? Whenever the teachers are absent during the breaks hours, recess hours, when Shanda and Amarka go out, Prahalad would gather all the boys, his schoolmates. They were also the sons of demons only. So Prahalad would gather all of them and he would start speaking to them about Krishna's devotional service. So, and all these small boys, they were not at all contaminated by the teachings of Shanda and Amarka yet. They are very small boys, they just joined the school. So they were not very much affected by demoniac philosophy. They are very young, and on top of it, they loved Prahalad Maharaj a lot. So they loved this little boy Prahalad. So out of their affection towards Prahalada, they would listen to Prahalad with full attention. So now the effectiveness of transmission of teachings of bhakti depend on a potent transmitter and a potent receiver, means a potent guru and a sincere disciple. So when the person who is giving the teachings of bhakti has pure bhakti within his heart, has a sincere heart, and the person who is receiving those teachings is very attentive and eager to receive them, then the transmission of the knowledge of bhakti happens very effectively. That's what has happened with Prahalad Maharaj also. Prahalad was a child within the womb of his mother, and Narada Muni gave teachings of bhakti to Prahalad in that situation, but still Prahalad received all of them. And now this 5-year-old boy Prahalad is giving teachings to his classmates. He is a child and they are also children. And both are demons. They are born in demoniac dynasty, although they did not develop demoniac mentality. They were born in demoniac dynasty and they were living in demons' school. But still, transmission of bhakti has happened very effectively. So in the 6th chapter, the Prahalad Maharaj begins his beautiful teachings. He first says, Kaumara acharet pragno dharman bhagavataniha durlabham manusham janma tadapyadhrvamarthadam. Kaumara acharet pragno. Pragna means intelligent people. Intelligent people perform devotional service and they begin the process of bhakti right from their childhood. Kaumara. The first 5 years of human life is called Kaumara or Balya stage. And next 5 years, 5 to 10 is Pauganda's age. 10 to 15 is Kaishora age. Beyond 15 it is Yavana. So Kaumara means 5-year-old boys. So you should start devotional service when you are just 5 years old. So then he also says Durlabham Manusham Janma, because this Manusham Janma or this human birth is extremely rare. Of all the species of life, human form of life is extremely rare. Although it is also temporary, a human being also will die. Just like a tiger or a lion or a horse or a pigeon or a parrot or a monkey or an ant or an insect, they will all die. Human being also dies. Tadapi adhruvam, it is also temporary. But arthadam, it is meaningful. Because an animal or a bird or a fish or an aquatic or a insect, they cannot study scriptures. They cannot hear Srimad Bhagavatam. They cannot study Bhagavad Gita. They cannot sit in a school of Vaishnavas and then take teachings of spiritual knowledge. But a human being can do all this. Tadapi adhruvam arthadam. Although human life is also temporary, it is very meaningful. So he says that utilize this human form of life to perform devotional service unto Vishnu. Then he says that Sukham Aindriyakam Daitya Deha Yogena Dehinam Sarvatra Labhyate Daivat Yatha Dukkham Ayatnataha. In this material world, we encounter unhappiness, distress. Does anyone desire distress? Nobody would desire distress, but still distress comes. Difficulties are coming, reversals are coming. So many miseries would come in this world. Although difficulties are coming in our life without desiring them, although we are not desiring difficulties, they come to us. Similarly, material happiness also comes to us without doing so much of hard labor. So we just work honestly to the best of our efforts to earn our livelihood, and whatever comes of its own accord, we become satisfied with it without becoming too greedy for material happiness. So he says that material happiness comes automatically as a result of one's past fruitive activities, past karma, just as material distress comes. So one should not over endeavor for material happiness. One should just do the needful to maintain one's body and life, body and soul together. Over endeavoring for material happiness is waste of time. So you cannot increase an iota of happiness, or you cannot decrease an iota of distress, which we are predestined to experience. But if one performs devotional service, performs bhakti unto Krishna, one can totally transcend this material happiness and material distress. But ordinarily on a material plane, one cannot just attain material happiness by over endeavoring. Prahalad says very clearly. So better one endeavors for the highest goal of Krishna consciousness as long as the body is healthy, strong and stout. This body undergoes lot of changes, and during the old days body cannot function properly. So it is said that we should get up early in the morning and chant the holy names of the Lord. But a person who is very old in age, he may not be able to have so much of physical strength to do all such austerities. So as long as the body is healthy and strong and stout, one has to utilize that opportunity to perform bhakti, he says that. And he says, out of 100 years of human life, half of the life will go into sleep. 50 years will just go into sleep only. And 10 years will go in childhood, in which we don't have so much intelligence or mature intelligence. A small boy or a girl is very innocent and ignorant that they cannot think of the purpose of life. 10 years just are wasted like that, and 10 more years are wasted in sporting, playing just some games, and 20 years are wasted in old age. People who are beyond 80s, they cannot function very properly. People may not even live beyond 80 also in Kali Yuga. Very rare. And the rest of the life is wasted in simple household affairs. 50 years in sleep, 10 years in playing, 10 years in childhood, 20 years in old age, and remaining 10 years is also just wasted in getting too much absorbed in materialistic household affairs. So better utilize and plan the life effectively and utilize the human life to attain spiritual perfection, he says that. So in family life, one is bound by ropes of uncontrolled senses. Krishna conscious grihastha life is glorious. We have seen so many examples of ideal grihasthas like Kardama Muni and Devahuti, and many other ideal grihasthas like Ambarish Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj, Yudhishthir Maharaj, and Bharat Maharaj, and so many such exalted souls who are leading ideal household lives, keeping Krishna in the center and retiring at the right time to completely dedicate themselves for the devotional service. But there are some other householders who are totally absorbed in sense enjoyment and materialistic household affairs without any spiritual inclinations. So Prahalad condemns that kind of household life that is totally centered on uncontrolled senses. And people, such householders, think that money is sweeter than honey. So to attain money, they may beg, borrow, steal, cheat people, loot people, or kill people, or at the cost of others' lives also they want to make money and enjoy. For money, people become so greedy. All the thieves and soldiers and merchants are so greedy of money, and people just get absorbed in material relationships, too much of affection and attachment to one's family members without keeping God in center, without any spiritual inclinations. Wife, then house and furniture and children and old parents and other relatives and friends and parties and social gatherings, and so many things are there. So a householder is supposed to attend to all these things as a matter of duty, but if one forgets God in the midst of all of these things, one is no better than a silkworm that is caught in a cocoon. So silkworm becomes imprisoned in its own cocoon. Similarly, one is bound in so many material conditions because of genitals and tongue. So in this way, Prahalad very elaborately describes materialistic household life. The human purpose is totally defeated and time is wasted in just acquiring money, and there is suffering. Although there is a lot of suffering, there is no detachment. People endeavor for happiness, they don't get happiness, they get distress, but still they don't get detached. That's what Vidura also said in the 3rd canto. Sukhaya karmani karoti loko nataihi sukham vanyaduparamam va. Sukhaya karmani karoti loko. To get sukha, happiness, people perform so many activities. Okay, sukhaya karmani karoti loko nataihi sukham, they don't get sukham. Va anyat, they get distress, the opposite of it. Uparamamba, they don't get detached from that endeavors for happiness also, although they are giving distress. So that is the nature of a conditioned soul. Prahalad also says something similar. So they cheat and accumulate money. They are not aware of Yamaraj's punishment, and even if they are aware of punishment of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, still they cheat, still they accumulate money. Ignorance is not the cause of every mistake. Even in knowledge also, people may commit mistakes. Everybody knows smoking is injurious to health, but still people take that risk and then smoke and they drink and they do so many other things also because of attachment to that so-called pleasure in that activity. Despite awareness of the negative results of those activities. So, though they are educated about the temporary nature of material possessions, they think in terms of mine and others. This is mine, I have to take it carefully. This is theirs, I can do it neglectfully. So those people who are bereft of knowledge of God, they are bound by material laws. They cannot liberate themselves. They are addicted to sense gratification, and they just become playthings in the hands of opposite gender, and they are surrounded by materialistic family affairs a lot. So you people are sons of demons. You could also get absorbed in such kind of materialistic life, but still the Lord is kind enough. He does not discriminate whether the demon is worshipping me or devotee is worshipping me. He can accept a demon also as a devotee if that demon performs devotional service. So you just keep aloof from all these things and then take shelter of the Lord. Prahalad is instructing his small 5-year-old schoolmates. So then he gives so many instructions on worshipping the Supreme Lord. He says there is no impediment in worshipping the Lord. There is no difficulty in pleasing the Lord. The Lord is extremely merciful and benevolent to whomever worships him, to whoever worships him. So he is the supreme controller, he is the super soul. He appears non-existent to the atheistic people, and he seems to be covered by Maya to such materialistic and selfish people. But towards the devotees, the Lord is very open and available, accessible. So how to satisfy the Lord? Prahalad says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, Tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu, Dayam kuruta sauhridam, Bhavam asura munmuchya, Yaya tushyatya dhokshajaha. He says, Tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu, Dayam kuruta sauhridam. You should be affectionate and compassionate and friendly towards all beings, first quality. Second, asuram bhavam unmutsya. You should give up your demoniac mentality, right? So give up demoniac nature and act without any enmity or duality and show mercy to all living beings. By doing these three things, you can definitely satisfy the Lord. Yaya tushyati adhokshajaha. The Lord is very pleased with such people. So devotees do not aspire for dharma, artha, kama. Just as Shanda and Namarka are constantly teaching about dharma, artha, kamas only. They don't teach about moksha. They are constantly teaching about diplomacy, politics, and discriminating people between enemies and friends. But devotees are not interested in such things. They are interested in loving people, showing compassion on people, being friendly to everyone, not envying anyone. So that is the nature of devotees. Prahalad is teaching this. And all the children, they loved Prahalad. Prahalad's teachings more than the teachings of Shanda and Amarka, naturally. So devotee is not interested in Traivargas. So then Prahalad Maharaj teaches about Bhagavata Dharma or devotional service or Bhakti Yoga. Then he says that I have learned these teachings of Bhagavata Dharma from my Guru Narada Muni. So that completes the 6th chapter. Now we enter the 7th chapter. So all the boys, when they have heard in the 6th chapter that Prahalad is teaching so many things, and at the end he said, I have learnt everything from Narada Muni. Then all the boys said that, my dear Prahalad, dear friend, you are studying in the same school as we are studying. We are all small children and we have only Shanda and Amarka as our teacher. Where did you learn all this spiritual knowledge and teachings of bhakti from Narada Muni? How did you hear from Narada Muni at all? So they were surprised. They never saw our Prahalad meeting Narada Muni. So in the 7th chapter beginning, Prahalad Maharaj narrated a previous incident that happened. He said that my father Hiranyakashipu went to perform austerities to become immortal. At that time, all the demigods came to my father's palace and they wanted to kidnap my mother, Kayadu. So they kidnapped my mother and they even destroyed our palace and other demoniac soldiers, and they plundered the whole palace and arrested my mother, arrested Hiranyakashipu's wife. So then at that time, actually the demigods' plan was not to harm Kayadu. They would not cause any harm to a woman, but they had a plan to kill the child who was within the womb of Kayadu. At that time, Kayadu, Hiranyakashipu's wife, was pregnant. So the demigods wanted to kill the child as soon as he is born, because Hiranyakashipu was a great demon. All these demigods were thinking that Hiranyakashipu's child will also become a great demon. Naturally, demon's son would become a great demon. So let us kill this child as soon as he is born. Like that the demigods thought. That's why they were arresting Kayadu. But at that time Narada Muni came there. Narada Muni told, demigods, why are you unnecessarily trying to arrest this innocent woman? He is the wife of another man. You are not supposed to be behaving very disrespectfully towards a woman like this. It is not proper for you. And what mistake that she has done? Then Indra and other demigods told, no, we don't want to harm her, but we want to kill her child, because he would become a great demon. Then Narada Muni said, she is a sinless woman and her child would become a great Mahabhagavata devotee. Don't think that he will be another demon like Hiranyakashipu. He will be a great devotee. He is a Mahabhagavat. So then Narada Muni, when he said like this, all the demigods immediately believed Narada Muni, because Narada Muni is such a pure devotee, he can win trust from the demigods. So it's totally against logic. So it's very unbelievable to think that Hiranyakashipu, such a great demon's son, would become a great devotee. So now we know about Prahlad, we know about Hiranyakashipu, then we may believe Narada Muni's words. But in that context, when the demigods were anticipating that Hiranyakashipu's child would be a great demon, for them to believe Narada Muni's words is really inconceivable. So all the demigods had trust on Narada Muni, because Narada Muni was a pure devotee. When we become pure devotees, we win the trust of all people, generally. At least noble people, righteous people or virtuous people. So all the demigods immediately said, oh, Narada Muni, we didn't know this. We thought he will become a demon. So then all the demigods circumambulated this Kayadu, pregnant Kayadu, with great respect. They offered obeisances, and then they left Kayadu in the care of Narada Muni. And Narada Muni took Kayadu to his ashram. He gave shelter to Kayadu in his ashram in the absence of Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu didn't know all these things. He was doing tapasya, he was doing austerities in that forest, in Mandara valley. So Kayadu started staying in the ashram of Narada Muni. So now Narada Muni started giving his instructions to Kayadu. He started speaking about bhakti to Kayadu. So Kayadu desired to give birth to her child after her husband comes back. So she just served Narada Muni in his ashram. So it's nice to offer services to a sadhu, to a renunciant, to a celibate like this. So then Narada Muni was very kind to fallen souls, and he was situated in a very transcendental position. So Narada Muni started instructing Kayadu and the child within the womb of Kayadu. He started giving teachings of bhakti. But although Narada Muni gave teachings of bhakti to both mother and child is not yet born, child is within the womb. The child within the womb is Prahlad Maharaj. So although Narada Muni was giving teachings of bhakti to both mother and child, Kayadu could not remember those teachings, because Kayadu was always thinking about Hiranyakashipu, her husband. She was very anxious. Already in the absence of her husband, there was an attack on the demons, attack on her with the demigods. So she was anxious for the return of her husband, and she was anxious for the safety of her child. Because of all these anxieties, this Kayadu could not remember all the teachings of Narada Muni. A long time has passed. So now Prahlad Maharaj was very attentive to the teachings of Narada Muni, and he has remembered everything. He did not have any anxiety. He was within the womb. So although Narada Muni was giving teachings to Prahlad Maharaj, who was just within the womb of his mother, still Prahlad being the son of a demon, Prahlad being within the womb of a mother with undeveloped body, that was not an obstacle for Prahlad to receive the teachings of Narada Muni. So transmission of bhakti can happen when the proponent and the recipient are both very sincere and eager. So here the proponent of bhakti teachings is Narada Muni, such a powerful, pure devotee, great sage. And Prahalad is very attentive to the teachings of Narada Muni. So without any obstacle, without any interruption, so this bhakti teachings could be transmitted transparently. These transcendental teachings of bhakti are transmitted from Narada Muni to Prahalad Maharaj very effectively. So when the recipient and the proponent both are sincere, pure devotees and sincere people, the transmission can be very effective. So Narada Muni's teachings to Prahalad Maharaj were very effective. Prahalada's teachings to his schoolmates were also very effective. So when there is pure intent and there is a consistent attempt, then there is always success. So our advancement or success in devotional service depends on our purity of intent and consistency of attempt. So here Prahalad was consistently practicing bhakti and giving teachings of bhakti despite all kinds of obstacles in his life. His father was personally placing obstacles in his life, but still Prahalad Maharaj was totally dedicated to the path of bhakti, and his teachers Chanda and Amarka were against Prahalad Maharaj's devotion. But Prahalad is teaching the students of his teachers the real bhakti. So now Prahalad started speaking to his boys, his friends. You are all children. Although you are small children, you can still understand transcendental knowledge. I was a child who was not yet born. I took transcendental teachings from Narada Muni within the womb. Now you came out of the womb. You are small children. You are already little grown up. You can always definitely take spiritual knowledge. And body undergoes 6 changes. The body is born, body is died at one point. Between this birth and death, so many changes are there. So many offspring may come. But the soul does not undergo all these changes. Atma, or the soul, is qualitatively one with the Lord. So it is a part and parcel, or it's a fragmental part of the Supreme Lord. So a spiritualist can understand the presence of soul and super soul within the body. Within our body there is soul and there is the Supreme Lord also. So the soul exists as an observer of 8 elements, the 3 modes and all the transformations that happen. The spirit soul exists in gross and subtle bodies. The spirit soul is covered by a subtle body which is made of mind, intelligence and ego, and a gross body which is made of earth, water, fire, air and ether. So we can uncover the soul from these external material gross and subtle coverings, then the real glory of the soul will manifest. What is the real glory of soul? The real glory of soul is the soul's devotion and love and affection for the Supreme Lord Krishna. So to reinstate the soul in that real position of being a servant of the Lord, being a lover of Lord, being a bhakta, one has to perform devotional service. So then he spoke about spirit, soul and transmigration. A sober person should search for the soul, spirit soul with pure mind, and due to polluted intelligence one is subjected to 3 modes. One should destroy that polluted intelligence, contaminated material intelligence, and take to devotional service. And one should perform bhakti, and there are different limbs of devotional service. The first limb is to accept a pure devotee as one's guru. Accepting guru, bona fide spiritual master, is the beginning of bhakti, and one should render service unto that guru, and one should offer all one's possessions to guru, and one should worship the Supreme Lord in the association of so many other devotees. One should hear about the Lord, one should glorify the Lord, one should meditate on the Lord, one should worship the deity form of the Lord, and one should offer respects to all living entities. One should develop Vaishnava qualities. Then one will be able to conquer all the 6 anarthas. All this lust, anger, pride, greed, envy, etc. will not be there in the personality of a devotee to the degree one devotee is dedicated to the process of bhakti. And above this result, so by performing bhakti, one will conquer the 6 anarthas, but that's only a secondary result. What is the primary result? What is the principal result? That is developing love for Lord Vasudeva. then one will be able to develop all ecstatic symptoms. One may laugh, one may cry, one may dance out of devotion, out of madness, out of transcendental joy in devotion to the Lord. So one will attain bhava, one will attain dasya and sakhya stages, and one will realize supreme spiritual bliss by performing devotional service. And this temporary material opulence cannot give any benefit to the permanent eternal spirit soul. So the destination of a materialistic person who is attached to sense gratification is only frustration that can eventually lead one to hell also. Sometimes one may become happy on a material plane, but that happiness will not last for long. That's why Krishna says that this world is dukkhalayam and ashashvatam. It is an abode of miseries, and even if there is little happiness also, that is temporary, ashashvatam. One is happy as long as one does not endeavor for it, but as soon as he begins activities for happiness, his distress also begins. So there is a lot of distress in one's endeavors for material happiness. One does not understand that, one does not realize that. So Jiva desires comfort through this perishable body, but the body is source of unlimited discomforts and miseries. So the body is meant to become stool or earth. There is no meaning to, if the body itself is meant to become stool and burn to ashes, how much how meaningful and permanent are things that are connected to this body, or things that are products of this body. Body is constantly emanating so many foul substances. So one has to suffer because of previous karma. So dharmartha kama mokshas are there. So one should depend on the disposition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one should follow the footsteps of pure devotees. And by following the footsteps of pure devotees, even demons can be purified, even animals can be purified, even heinous hunters also can be purified, like Mrigari was purified. So the Lord is the dearmost object. One may think in this world, everybody's dearmost person is one's own self. Everybody loves one's own self more than anyone else. And because one loves oneself more than anyone else, one loves one's body, because this is my body, I love myself, so I love my body. Because I love my body, I love my bodily relationships and bodily possessions. And that's and one's dearness towards family members or relatives or one's nation, one's community, one's caste, everything will come because of one's dearness to one's own body, one's own self. But why one's own self is dear to one's own self? Because that self or the soul is part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna is the soul of all souls. He is Atmanam Akhilatmanam. Because we are souls and fragmental parts are amshas of Krishna, we are attracted to ourselves. But primarily, our original attraction is towards Krishna. So in the conditioned state, our attraction or love or dearness to Krishna is diverted as dearness to one's own self. And because we love one's own self, we love our body and bodily possessions, relatives, family, nation, community, etc., etc. So one should take to devotional service and love Krishna, develop one's innate love for Krishna. The Lord is pleased only when there is unflinching bhakti, unalloyed devotion. In the same favorable way, one has to take care of oneself and take to devotional service to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The ultimate goal of human life is to render service unto the lotus feet of Lord Govinda and to see Him everywhere. A devotee who loves God sees God everywhere. So that is the nature of a devotee. So in this way, Prahlad Maharaj gave his teachings to all his schoolmates, and all the children appreciated his teachings, and they rejected the teachings of Shanda and Amarka, and they started doing Harinam Sankirtan. They started chanting the holy names of the Lord. They started singing and dancing along with Prahlad. And this whole transformation in the school children of Shanda and Amarka, that alarmed Shanda and Amarka a lot. They went and reported to Hiranyakashipu. And now Hiranyakashipu begins to chastise Prahlad Maharaj again. And finally, in this final confrontation, Prahlad Maharaj would be challenged by Hiranyakashipu so much that Hiranyakashipu Prahlad Maharaj says that my Lord is all pervading, and then Hiranyakashipu strikes the pillar in his assembly hall with his fist, and then Narasimhadev manifests and kills Hiranyakashipu. All those events and the prayers of Prahlad we will see in the next episode. Today we discussed 3 chapters, the 5th, 6th and 7th chapters of the 7th canto. In the 5th chapter we have seen the glorious character of Prahlad Maharaj and his teachings to Hiranyakashipu, which Hiranyakashipu has rejected and tried to kill Prahlad also. And later in the 6th and 7th chapters we have seen the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj to his own schoolmates. In that we have seen the soul's transmigration and the whole process of Bhagavata Dharma and Bhakti. And tomorrow we will see the prayers of Prahlad and killing of Hiranyakashipu by Narasimhadev. Thank you all very much. Granathara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.